Welcome to the Super Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the new Super Gamer Podcast, episode 118. Our guest this week makes dice out of resin and does other artwork as well. But very cool dice, a lover of Dungeons and Dragons. It's Dice Witchery. We have Christina Bledsoe. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So your dice, you started doing this in late 2018, I believe.
Yes.
And very recently started doing it full time.
Yes. This will be my second week officially doing this as my 9 to 5. So it's very weird. My last job, I was a graphic designer for a weekly newspaper. And I was at that job for about 15 years. So it's a weird transition to being my own boss, but not gonna lie, the perks are nice. I don't have to get out of my pajamas until like noon if I don't feel like it.
Right. Or at all, really.
Really, yeah. I mean, there are days where it's slippers all day.
So how's it, is it kind of tough to, as your own boss, is it hard to kind of stay motivated at all, or how's it been doing this full time?
So far it hasn't been difficult. How to explain? I feel a lot more like creatively recharged, I guess. So it's like I wake up and I can't wait to get into my workspace and just start making stuff. And I've been like making lists of things that I want to get done for that week. And because I'm fully aware that being your own boss is way harder than working for somebody. You really have to have a lot of self-discipline. And so I'm trying to keep those good habits going so that I can be successful at this.
And what about, I know there's a pretty vast community of dice makers out there on the internet, and you are a part of it. But is there enough demand to sustain, this huge community?
So far, yes. That is definitely something that I worry about long term. But so far, surprisingly, yes. It is kind of a heavily saturated market, but being able to kind of have a couple items that set you apart from other dice makers really seems to help.
Well, that leads to my question, in this community, what makes a Dice Witchery dice unique? What is Dice Witchery?
I would say probably my most popular designs started with, I do these Galaxy Pearl dice where I do like these little resin multicolored pearls suspended in the center of a die, and then it kind of looks like a swirling galaxy underneath it. And I haven't done those in a while, though, because they are difficult to make. They take me a couple days just for one set. So I think lately my most popular ones are probably my ale-themed ones. I do like a light-colored ale and an amber-colored ale. And I do a purple one that's my fairy ale. And people just really seem to like those.
Yeah, and your fairy one comes with like a card of what different roles could mean if someone were to drink this ale, which I think is a really nice touch. And also, I think probably the standard ale one I think that would be my favorite. There was a 6-sided one, and I just really liked it.
Yep. And they're fun to make. I put these little UV resin bubbles in them that, so they won't affect the balance, but they just look like bubbly drinks, and it's a lot of fun.
So people listening probably have picked up on it by now, but just in case, you make dice of the tabletop RPG variety, which runs from, I think there's a D3 all the way to, I think D20 is probably typically the highest, but I think there is like a D100 or something.
Yes.
Yeah, so you do the whole gamut there.
Yes, I do, yeah. I just recently switched to an alternate style of a D4 because I am not a fan of the caltrops. So
yes. I was going to bring that up.
Yes, I love my little Mobius D4. It was printed for me by a master maker called Type 13, and he's fabulous. And it has been very well received by anybody who's seen them. So I am excited to be making more of them.
Absolutely. And I saw it and I was like, oh, great. Because the regular D4 and D3 they're not satisfying to roll because they don't roll.
No.
You just drop them.
Yep, they just kind of plop.
Yeah, so I love that design. That's so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. You have dice ranging from $130 all the way to $12.50. What makes a die worth $12.50 versus $130?
Well, the $12.50 ones are usually just singles, like D6s and stuff. Something that if I'll have extra resin, then I'll just pour them into extra molds. Because I like to, when I do shop drops, I totally understand that not everybody can afford $130 for a set of dice. So I like to have singles and, dice that are a little more affordable so that there's something for everyone. The ones that are 130 definitely are the ones that take me a couple days to make, like my Galaxy Pearl ones or my Ale ones, because they're very time intensive.
What's the most difficult material to work with?
Florals. Florals are hard. It's really I've been drying my own flowers to put in resin, so that takes time. And then you have to manage to get them in the molds without breaking them. And I tried to do lilacs, and never again will I do lilacs. It's impossible to, for some reason, when you put them in resin, then the resin seeps into the pores of the flower and it turns it transparent, which is kind of cool. Not what I was going for, though. And no matter how many times I sealed them, which you can imagine how small a lilac blossom is, sealing those was a challenge. I made one set for commission, and I'm not doing that again. It's just the difficulty's not worth it.
Mm-hmm. So you've obviously been an artist for quite a while. I don't know exactly how long, but probably a good chunk of your life. What was it in 2018?
I was a little girl.
Yeah, and you're very good.
Thank you.
What was it in 2018 where you were like, okay, I'm going to dice?
Well, I have loved Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games since I was a kid. I started, I think, with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, playing that on the weekends with my family, and just kind of haven't stopped since then. So I've always been interested in creating. It's just in every fiber of my being. So I love traditional art and digital art and all that, and I kind of want to expand it into something a little different. And in 2018, there was only a handful of makers that were branching into making their own dice, and I had actually seen them on a Facebook post, and I went, oh, that looks like it would be really fun. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I just kind of got obsessed with it a little bit and researching, and at that time there was nothing out there, no tutorials. Everybody was just kind of, well, let's see what happens when we do this, and then sharing their results. And I was surprised that it's still just as creatively rewarding as putting pencil to paper, for me anyways.
Speaking of tutorials, I watched your mold tutorial, and I kind of laughed because I'm just so bad. I like to think I'm a relatively creative person, but when it comes to traditional artwork, I'm horrible. I'm just terrible with my hands. And the very first step where you're just cut out the bottom of the styrofoam cup, I was like, I would screw that up. There's no way I can do that.
Good news, though, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Okay. I saw, you were doing such perfect circles. I was like, nope, not for me.
Having a sharp blade really helps, too.
Okay. So what have you learned over the 3.5 years of dice making?
Oh my gosh. Definitely patience. Dice making is an exercise in patience. You've got to, and learning how different types of resins react with different types of materials and colorants and inclusions. And trying, probably one of the biggest things I think I've learned is just trying to come out of my shell a bit and be more interactive with the community, because it is a fabulous community. And trying to not let, imposter syndrome rear its ugly head and just push that away. And because it's fun getting to talk to people on, Twitter and Instagram and all that.
I guess it's kind of bad timing considering, pandemic, but have you managed to get out to any cons or show your work off anywhere in person?
Not yet. There's a con next weekend. It's actually local to me here, and I am hoping I won't get to vend because it's definitely too late for that. But I want to go and just have like a pocket full of single D20s and business cards and just hand them out to everybody.
How do you keep it fresh and interesting for yourself?
Lots and lots of probably on my phone way too much, but I will just search and look at what other makers are doing, and they inspire me so much. And so I've gotten in the habit now to, when I see something that inspires me and I get an idea of, oh, this would look cool if I did this, definitely not copying their ideas, just getting that spark. I try to write it down so that when I do have those moments where I'm like, okay, I want to make something, but I don't know what I want to make, then I can look in my little notebook and be like, oh yeah, I had this idea for this thing. Let's try that. And it's I always love just kind of throwing stuff together and seeing what happens. Doesn't always turn out, but sometimes it really does. And you're like, okay, I will never be able to do that again.
How many dice do you have in your home? Like, how many just strewn about?
Oh, a lot. Oh my gosh. Before I started making for myself, I was a dice goblin anyways. And so I probably have just, mass-produced manufactured dice, probably about 100 sets. And then I started doing trades with other makers. And so now all of my factory sets are kind of set off in this pretty little bag, and I just play exclusively with handmade dice from my other maker friends. And that's quite a bit too.
So when you join, have you ever joined a new D&D group and then you pull out your own fancy dice? Like, are they like, oh, well, a real gamer?
Not yet, but that would be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I live in a small town, and our nerd group is kind of small, and it's usually my family and then their friends. So
right. I think
they all know me.
I don't think I'd be very good generally making new friends, period. But certainly, D&D is such an intimate kind of thing. It'd be for me anyway. It'd be tough to just join a group.
It is, because you don't know like the dynamics of the table and how other people are they going to be RP heavy, or are they just in it for hanging out with their friends? And again, back to that whole imposter syndrome, you're just like, God, are everybody judging me because I decided to play a grandma gnome or what?
Right. As far as your own dice and bringing it to a game, I remember as a young kid, my grandpa taught me how to play cribbage, and he was sort of a woodworker. He wasn't fantastic at it, but he made his own crib pegs, and he gave me some, and he told me, next time you meet someone to play crib, pull those out, and you're going to really intimidate them.
Oh, nice. Heck yes, do a little flex.
That's right. Oh, I haven't played in a while.
My dad used to make cribbage boards out of old slabs of wood, and then he'd take nails and put that electrical heat shrink on the nails for different colors.
Okay.
It was so just very rustic, rudimentary, but man, it worked. They played cribbage all the freaking time.
So one thing in your FAQ on your website, you talk about how your dice are perfectly balanced. And certainly it comes across like this gets brought up a lot. Do you get people complaining like, I think this is a trick die?
Yeah, unfortunately, trying to make a trick die is way harder than it is to make a balanced die. Most or all of my dice are cast in a pressure pot, so, the pressure in there reduces the bubbles to just microscopic amounts. You'll find more bubbles in factory-made sets than you will in a handmade set. And I feel that even the person who started that, the whole saltwater test thing has come out and been like, okay, guys, can we stop doing this now? But for some reason, like, people just, like, kind of latch on to it. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like if they're that worried about balance in a game of make-believe with your friends, maybe they're playing the wrong kind of game.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how like, even if it wasn't perfectly balanced, who cares? Unless you're getting like a 1 every time or 20 every time, whatever, like, okay.
Yeah. And even then, ones can be funny, so... Yeah.
Do you how often would a dice, like, screw up at whatever stage? Like, do you ever have to go, oh, this is in the rejection pile?
I do. I actually, I have a set that I bought, oh gosh, way back in like 2000. And it's a Moonstone, it's a factory made set. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it. It's like a very rare one because they used a glitter in it that they can't use anymore because apparently Denmark uses it in their currency.
That's actually cool.
Yeah. Apparently they're really valuable too. But I like to keep them because they're pretty. But they're factory made, so there's big old bubbles in the center of them, and they consistently roll terrible. So they're now just hanging in a shadow box, so I can look at them and be like, "Yep, those are pretty."
But as far as the ones that you make, is it pretty much, well, you're always going to make a perfect one, or does it come out sometimes and you're like, whoops, that's not the shape it should be?
Oh, yeah, when I'm casting them?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, yeah. I have so many jars of fails. I have a couple, I learned the hard way with slab molds that if you don't fill every single spot with resin, then for some reason when you put it under pressure, it will distort the rest of the dice. So I have a couple D6s that they have hips.
I think that'd be a fun D&D campaign, like the rejected dice, rebel or something.
Right? Oh man, I have so many of them.
Tell me about your current D&D character in whatever game you're currently playing.
We just started Curse of Strahd, and we've only gotten to play one session, and that was like 2 months ago, so it's been a while. But I started a new character. I started a Tabaxi swashbuckler, and I am having a ton of fun with that character. Oh, she's so much fun to play. Especially getting that sneak attack damage. It's so nice. Her name is Bold Edge, and she's kind of very curious, as most Tabaxi are. And she loves to, this is so silly, but she loves to do that weird cat thing where they just stare at the ceiling, and then when someone else notices, they're like, what? Before that, I was playing a tiefling sorcerer, of course, because everybody loves tieflings.
You said you play with your family. Do your kids play?
They do. My oldest, he just turned 16, and he plays an arcane rogue. And I'm trying to get my middle child, he's 15, to play, because he's very animated, and I think would do really good with like doing voices and making kind of just unusual off the wall characters. But we haven't, because we haven't played it in a while. I haven't had a chance to get him into it. And then my daughter, who is 8, I haven't had a chance to get her in a game yet, but she really, really wants to. So I think I've kind of dabbled in DMing myself, and I have a couple nieces and nephews that are right around the same age too. So I think I'm going to do like a kids game just for them so that they can get to play too.
Well, in the summer of 2019, I believe, you DM'd your second 5th edition campaign, and you one-shotted your brother's character.
Yes.
And for the first time, you flubbed a roll. Do you remember why you flubbed this roll?
Because I was about to kill another player. Yeah, so I went, no, let's not. I don't. And I was DMing for a group who had never played D&D before, except for my brother, and he was kind of coming in as like a co-DM to help me out. And so I'm glad he was the one that got one-shotted because he thought it was hilarious. But I didn't want to, like, for these first-timers, set up their first expectation that they're going to die each session. Like, no. That's not how this works. Like, at my table, it's very much the rule of cool. And we'll just, sure, go try do that thing. Roll that dice and see how that happens. And it was really funny because it was a very mixed group of adults and younger kids. And some of the adults hadn't played since like 3.5, I think. It had been quite a while for them. And the kids, of course, this was their first time. And they just thought, I loved the kids. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. So, and I believe a couple of them have now gone on to, they have their own groups that they've started, which I think is just fantastic.
You're spreading the word.
Yeah, I love D&D so much. It's just collaborative storytelling. You just sit around a table with your favorite beverage and some snacks, and you just have fun with your friends and family. Like, what's better than that?
Yeah. We have, I haven't played with my old group in a long time. Some people moved away, including our DM.
Oh, no.
But two things. He used to say, as a DM, dice rolling is for show. Basically telling us that he just made up whatever he wanted to make the story good.
But you know what? I'm pretty sure my brother's done that too.
Oh, yeah. He also, this guy isn't particularly great at math, so I'm sure sometimes he just was like, Oh,
I feel that.
But one time we had made new characters, blah, 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 and one of our guys had showed up really hungover. Like, wanted to be there for the game, but just was clearly having a terrible time. And he got one-shotted, like, immediately after rolling his character. And it was one of those, like, the DM was doing his best. He's like, oh, well, maybe you can roll for, this, or maybe this will work out for you. And just fail, until finally it's like, oh, your character's dead. And I just remember my friend just like, well, I'm out of here.
Oh, no.
Got up and left.
Oh, no. Oh, I probably went home to sleep it off.
Yes, exactly.
That might be a good lesson, though. Don't show up to your games hungover.
Yes, exactly. You have a commitment.
Yes.
Your kids obviously taking interest in D&D. Are they interested in your work at all?
Yes, they love, when they come home from school, and especially now, that I pour in the morning, and sometimes I can pull something either before they get home from school or just after, depending on the resin that I'm using. But they love to be like, all right, what did you make today?
And what about, like, is dice kind of where you're sticking with? Are you planning on branching out into, like, 'cause we've talked about how you do lots of different artwork. Is there anything else that you want to take dice witchery to?
I do, actually. I'm working on kind of expanding a little bit. I want to offer, like, I'm going to change, it's still going to be dice witchery, but I'm going to add curiosities and tabletop treasures to the name. So that kind of encompasses anything that I want to put forth on there. It's not just dice. I'd like to offer, health potions and tabletop props and, lots of other things. I already have some stickers, but, other just cool, unusual things that can add flavor to any kind of game.
And going way back to the dice shape, is there more than one shape for, say, like a D6 or something? Like, can you get creative in that sense? Or is it just like, well, if you want a balanced die, it's this?
No, there absolutely is. I'm looking at getting a couple more. They have, I think they call them shard D6s, where they're just kind of elongated on 2 points. And they're just gorgeous and still roll just fine. So I'm looking at getting a couple of those. Unfortunately, I do not print my own master dice. That is not a technique I have mastered because that's a whole nother obsession. But I definitely want to add more funky shapes because, having the traditional ones are still very, very cool, but getting to have the option for alternate shapes is something I want to offer as well.
Someone made a fake Instagram account of Dice Witchery.
Yes. I kind of felt honored.
I was going to say, you really made it.
I was like, woo, finally. Yeah.
I mean, what happened there? Is it still around?
Technically, it's still around. It's one of those sneaky ones that they'll change their name. So, and I haven't done a giveaway in a while, so I'm not sure if they're still doing it. But it was definitely something tied to if you were doing a giveaway, then they would spoof your account to try and get people away from what you were doing and click on the links for their stuff. And I think it was just, phishing scams, but still really frustrating. Mm-hmm. It's just like, come on, people, not yours. Leave it alone. Go do your own thing.
It seems like such a strange tactic.
It really is. It doesn't make any sense to me, but apparently it's worked for them in the past because there's a lot that do it.
Right. And then I have to ask about, from an estate sale, you found an Arwen belt buckle.
Oh, yes.
Which is bizarre. Like, I can't believe that exists. It's so cool.
Oh, it was so cool. And apparently that belt buckle company, I forget the name of it, but they made like a whole bunch of different themed kind of belt buckles. And just this estate sale was so cool because it was just full of so much random stuff, like, cool old furniture. They had these beautiful glass sculptures. Some of them were worth like thousands of dollars. And it was just crazy to me that, in my tiny little hometown, there was this treasure trove of cool stuff.
Some secretive nerd.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I picked it up, I just saw that it's like this beautiful kind of Art Nouveau-ish relief of Arwen. But when I first picked it up, I didn't know it was her at first. And I was like, oh, that's really pretty. I want that. And then after I bought it, I looked at the back of it and read, there's a little excerpt from the book, like inscribed on the back. And I was like, oh, Mary.
That is a great conversation starter. Like, I would wear that everywhere.
Right? Right? I'm going to try and see if I can modify it a little bit and turn it into like a cloak clasp, because I think it would be much cooler that way.
Well, what about, is there more room in the dice making community? What advice would you have for someone who wants to get into this?
Do not be afraid of failure, because even those of us that have been doing this for years still have failures. Resin is fickle, and you will have, weeks where stuff will work exactly how you intend it, and then you'll just pull something and you'll be like, what the heck happened? Also, don't be afraid to ask questions. We try really, really hard to make the dice community very inclusive and very friendly. And, if you're going to be a butt, we're going to shun you and kick you out. So don't be afraid. to reach out to makers. I've had several that will message me on Instagram or Twitter, which is like, hey, what's this tool that you're using? I'd like to get that. And I will happily send them links or answer any questions or anything like that. Also, be safe. Proper PPE is very, very, very important. Resin is very toxic, so make sure you're wearing your respirators and nitrile gloves and all that stuff, because you want to make sure you're as safe as possible while you're doing this. That's probably the top ones.
Cool. Well, by the time this episode comes out, your store will have restocked, because I believe May 28th is the day that is happening. Anything new people should check out, and how quickly is this going to go? Like, how quickly does someone need to get on that?
Right away. If there's something that I've been working on the last couple of weeks that you've been eyeballing, I would say set yourself a reminder, because once 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time comes out, chances are high that they're going to be gone really, really fast. I try to make multiples of the sets that I know that are really popular, just to kind of give, more chances for people, but it is just me doing this, and I am trying my best.
As a full-time creator, how often can you restock now?
I am hoping to have dice drops every month, probably towards the end of each month. That way, I can still make my mortgage and feed my family.
Well, if people want to get their hands on some of these, dicewitchery.com. You can also find Dice Witchery on Twitter, and Christina Bledsoe has some merchandise on Redbubble. Christina Bledsoe, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.